Hey everybody, I'm Kara and I talk to wine. Today we are not only talking to wine and listening to it, but we're gonna put a lot of emphasis on smelling it. So why does wine smell like fruit or different minerals or unique, what are called secondary aromas? These aromas that, smell like butter or cinnamon or spices or vegetal florals. So why does wine smell? I'm gonna answer that question for you today. But we're gonna use a wine that's what's called highly aromatic. So when you think about aromas or smells in a glass of wine, there are kind of three different categories for any wine you have in your glass. It can be what's called delicate, so not very aromatic, not much going on, just kind of more hard to extract smells. You can have moderate intensity of aroma, which is kind of, in between, obviously, not incredibly hard to smell, but it's also not jumping out of the glass. And then you have a highly or intensely aromatic wine. And that's gonna be a wine that has a lot of smells and really gives the nose a bit of a party in terms of what you can pick up in the glass of wine. So I'm using an aromatic wine. This is a Viognier. This is from Pride. It's a winery in wine country. And this is a Viognier. So they're actually on Spring Mountain. So it's this famous mountain in Napa. And they're using actually Sonoma fruit. This is a Viognier from actually Sonoma County, but Pride is making it in their facility over on Spring Mountain. So high elevation, but Viognier is a very aromatic grape. So what I want to do is take you through this wine, just smelling it. So we don't really need to focus on anything else because I want you to leave this video having a strong grasp on why wine smells the way it does. And let's start. Let's give it a smell. So first thing, you obviously kind of want to, if your wine is very cold, giving it a little love with your hands actually starts to release more of what are called the esters or aromas or the actual compounds that give wine its smell. So when you use your hands to warm it up, it's going to release more to smell. So serving your wine too cold actually masks a lot of the aroma or a lot of the aromatics. So start with that. And then when you do this, it always looks a little pretentious, but just be confident in it, just do it. Because what you're doing is you're having oxygen hit your wine, and that's also going to break apart, release, and cause more aromas to jump out of the glass. So oxygen is gonna do that for us, and this is just merely helping to guide the oxygen into the glass and into the wine. So now that we've done a couple methods to try to bring more out, let's just smell it and go from there. All right, so not too hard at all to start putting together some smells. So first and foremost, I think about fruit. So this has lots of tropical fruit, kind of these melons and lychee and a bit of a kind of underlying mango type of smell. But it also has a lot of what's called stone fruit. So apple, pear, or not apple, but, and not pear. Stone fruit is more of your peaches and your nectarines and your kind of pitted fruits. But it also has apple and pear, which are more of those kind of like orchard tree fruits. And it really spans the spectrum of really kind of ripe, luscious fruit. Beautiful. So next, we're gonna go out of the fruit category and into what are called secondary aromas or non-fruits. And this has bursting out of the glass florals. So lots of rose, lots of white flower, a little bit of this kind of like lavender, so very floral. And then it has a bit of kind of this savory touch as well. So Viognier typically has something of this almost toasted cereal, kind of overall savory nature. And this definitely has that too. So there is that underlying almost, honey nut or honeycomb cereal, if you've ever had that, at least in my mind. And then there is a touch of what I would consider this fresh, just rocky kind of river rock. So just a hint of what's called minerality. So some wines have more or less of that as well. Yeah. So, and then you kind of talk about oak. This has, I would, just from detecting it, it might have a little bit of oak, but it's not overwhelming. So oak just kind of gives you those spicy, more toasty qualities. So I would say potentially some used oak, but really not overwhelming the wine. And I got a little whiff of kind of like this orange peel too. And the wine just keeps opening up, which is really interesting to smell it and then take a second and then smell it again and get new aromas. So we know what Viognier is giving us, but the question I always ask wine classes or people that I'm teaching about wine is, okay, when do they put in the essence of rose or the essence of apple or the essence of lychee or the spices? So I ask people, well, if it smells like this, when do they put in those actual smells? Because a wine can't smell like that unless you're putting in something else. And this always just makes people think, and that's why I'm telling you this today as well, because I want you to think and I want you to realize that at no point in the winemaking is a winemaker adding anything to the wine in terms of smells or any kind of like unnatural additives in regards to smell. So the only thing in your glass is going to be grapes called Viognier. And the reason that Viognier smells like Viognier is because we are not smelling actual fruits and flowers and spices. We're smelling chemical compounds that have come about because of the chemical process of fermentation. So that's our first look into why this wine has all of this aromatics, is because the Viognier juice is transformed and going through this chemical process, it's extracting and presenting these chemical compounds so that we are able to smell. That's the first kind of genetic identity that leads to some of the major smells. And then where these grapes are grown is also going to result in the changes of smell. And this one happens to be more mountainous, and that's what gives us more of that minerality and more of that kind of restraint in terms of the overall combination of aromatics. So chemical compounds, that's the only thing you're smelling. So we're not actually smelling fruits, we're smelling esters. We're not actually smelling flowers, we're smelling terpenes. And the list goes on. You know, rotundant is if you smell pepper. There's a myriad of different chemical compounds, but we give these smells, these compounds, conversational names and classifications to allow us to communicate about wine without being too dry or overwhelming. Okay, so hopefully now you understand a little bit more about aromatics, you understand a bit more about why your wine smells the way it does, and keep smelling that wine. Keep giving it a sniff, you'll only improve your smelling, and I look forward to continuing the conversation to keep talking about wine. Side note, check out If Wine Could Talk, because that is going to give you even more insight on my education, on a little bit of my story with wine, and hopefully will be quite an entertaining read for you. So once again, If Wine Could Talk is my book, and it is coming out September 21st, but you can buy it on Amazon, Target, Barnes & Noble. You can get it. So I look forward to seeing you next time, and cheers.